"That girl can't be her," my mother whispered, her face draining of color. The crystal champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor of the charity gala. Conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward us. But I couldn't look away from the young woman across the room, the same chestnut hair, the same constellation of freckles, the same slight tilt of her head as my sister. My sister who had supposedly drowned 18 years ago. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The elegant ballroom of the Boston Memorial Children's Hospital suddenly felt airless, as if the crystal chandeliers had descended to crush my chest. Mother gripped my wrist, her manicured nails digging crescents into my skin. "We're leaving. Now." Her voice was low, dangerous, a tone I knew better than to challenge. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because my dead sister was standing 20 feet away, very much alive. "Who is she?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible over the string quartet that had resumed playing. Mother's grip tightened. A coincidence. Nothing more. But the terror in her eyes told a different story. I wrenched my arm free, ignoring her hissed warning as I moved toward the girl. My hands trembled as I navigated through Boston's elite, all dressed in their charity gala finery. The girl, woman now, wore a simple black dress, her hair swept into a loose bun. She laughed at something an older man beside her said, and the sound stabbed through me. That laugh. I knew that laugh from dreams and faded memories. Halfway across the room, a hand caught my elbow. Dr. Marcus Chin, my new colleague at Boston General Psychology Department, looked concerned. "Sophia, everything okay? Your mother seems upset." "That woman," I whispered, nodding toward her. "Who is she?" Marcus followed my gaze. "Charlotte Reed. She's one of our success stories, survived childhood leukemia. She volunteers here now." Charlotte. Not Eliza. Not my sister. But the resemblance. "I need to talk to her," I said, already moving forward. "Sophia, wait." Marcus caught up beside me. "What's going on?" I couldn't explain. Couldn't form the words to say that the ghost of my childhood had materialized before me. That the sister whose funeral I attended, whose small coffin I had watched lowered into the ground, might be standing in this room. 3 steps away from her now. 2. 1. She turned. Our eyes met. There was no recognition in her face. Only polite curiosity as I stood frozen before her, unable to speak. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking. The small scar above her right eyebrow, the one Eliza got when we were 5, falling from the apple tree in our backyard. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice gentle. "Do I know you?" Before I could answer, Mother appeared, all society smiles and false brightness. "Sophia, darling, we need to go. Your father isn't feeling well." She nodded stiffly toward Charlotte. "Excuse my daughter. She sometimes mistakes people." Charlotte smiled uncertainly. "No problem at all." Mother pulled me away, her fingers digging painfully into my arm. I glanced back once. Charlotte was watching us leave, a slight furrow between her brows. Outside in the cool October night, Mother rounded on me. "What were you thinking?" Her voice vibrated with barely controlled rage. "That's Eliza," I said, the words hanging in the space between us like an accusation. "Mother, that's her. She has the scar. Your sister is dead." Mother cut me off sharply. "She drowned. You were there." "I was 7. All I remember is screaming and you pulling me from the lake. I never saw her body enough." The word exploded from her. A passing couple glanced our way, and Mother immediately composed herself, smoothing her designer dress. "This conversation is over. We're going home." But as the valet brought our car around, I knew with bone-deep certainty, nothing was over. This was just beginning. My apartment felt too small that night, the walls closing in with questions. Rain tapped against the windows as I sat cross-legged on my bed, laptop open, searching for Charlotte Reed Boston. Her social media was limited, but there was enough. Born in Rochester, New York. Graduated from Cornell. Volunteer coordinator at Boston Memorial Children's Hospital. In her photos, she smiled with the same slight asymmetry as Eliza, one dimple deeper than the other. I opened another tab, typing childhood leukemia survival rates 1990s. The statistics blurred before my eyes. It wasn't impossible that Charlotte had survived leukemia as a child. But combined with the identical scar, the matching features. My phone buzzed. Marcus. You seemed shaken tonight. Everything okay? I stared at the message, considering how much to share. Marcus and I had only been colleagues for 3 months. He'd joined Boston General Psychology Department after finishing his PhD at UCLA. Brilliant, dedicated to his patients, always bringing coffee for the overnight staff. We weren't close friends, not yet, but there was something trustworthy about him. That woman looks exactly like my sister who died when we were kids. His response came quickly. That's intense. Do you want to talk about it? I hesitated, then, maybe tomorrow. Thanks, I set the phone down and returned to my search. An hour later, I'd found nothing conclusive. Charlotte's earliest online presence began in her college years. Before that, she was a ghost. Just like my sister. I closed the laptop and lay back, staring at the ceiling. The memory came unbidden, fragments of that day at the lake house. Sunshine, the wooden dock, Eliza's red swimsuit. Then terror, cold water, mother screaming. Dad arrived home late that night. Mother was hysterical. I remember hiding in the hallway, watching them through the cracked door of the study. It's done, Dad had said. We've started again. What had that meant? I'd been too young, too traumatized to question it then. But now, my phone buzzed again. Check Marin County adoption records, 1999. Charlotte Reed. I stared at the message. It wasn't from Marcus. The number was unknown. Who is this? I typed back. No response came. I tried to push it away, to tell myself it was a wrong number, a bizarre coincidence. But at 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I called in sick to work, booked a flight to San Francisco, and started packing. Whatever truth existed, I would find it in Marin County. The county records office was housed in a bland government building in San Rafael. I'd spent the 6-hour flight rehearsing what I would say, what identification I might need to access adoption records. Public records were technically accessible, but there were privacy protocols, especially for adoptions. What I hadn't planned for was the elderly clerk's immediate recognition. Ramirez, she repeated when I gave my name. Her eyes widened slightly behind thick glasses. Any relation to Gregory Ramirez from Boston? My father. He's my father, I admitted, surprise making me honest. She studied me for a long moment. I thought I recognized those eyes. He was here, must be nearly 20 years ago now. Such a sad case. My heart kicked against my ribs. What case? She seemed to catch herself. Oh, just county business. Now, what was it you needed, dear? I leaned in, lowering my voice. I'm looking for information about an adoption that took place around 1999. The adoptee's name would now be Charlotte Reed. The clerk's face closed like a shutter. I'm afraid adoption records are sealed unless you're directly involved or have a court order. Please, I said, desperation creeping into my voice. I think she might be my sister. Something flickered in the woman's eyes, pity, perhaps. Or guilt. I really can't help you, Ms. Ramirez. Rules are rules. But as she turned away, she slid a small piece of paper across the counter. The coffee shop across the street makes excellent lattes. I take my break there at 2. At 2:05, I sat in the corner of the coffee shop, hands wrapped around a cooling latte, watching the door. The clerk arrived 5 minutes later, ordered her drink, and joined me without a word. I shouldn't be doing this, she said without preamble. But I remember your father. And I remember the girls. Girls. Plural. What happened? I asked, my voice barely audible. She sighed, stirring her coffee. Your father came to finalize an adoption. Private, closed. Unusual circumstances. The child had been legally declared deceased in Massachusetts, but was being given a second chance, as your father put it. The room tilted slightly. My sister didn't drown. No, the clerk said softly. From what I gathered, she was very ill. Leukemia. Your parents had her declared dead in Boston, but brought her to California for experimental treatment. When she recovered, they gave her up. They gave her away? My voice cracked. Why would they do that? The clerk looked uncomfortable. It wasn't my place to ask. But your father said something about starting fresh, about it being better for everyone. Better for everyone. The words Mother had repeated throughout my childhood whenever I mentioned Eliza. It's better for everyone to remember her as she was. Do you know who adopted her? She hesitated. The Reeds. Thomas and Judith. They couldn't have children of their own. Thomas was a doctor involved in the clinical trial that saved your sister's life. The pieces were falling into place, a terrible picture emerging. And they had no other children? No twins or siblings that might explain the resemblance. No, just the one girl. She pulled a folded paper from her purse and slid it across the table. This is all I can give you. What you do with it is your business, but please don't mention where it came from. It was a copy of a birth certificate. 2 names, Sofia Elena Ramirez and Eliza Maria Ramirez. Twins. My sister hadn't just survived. She'd been erased and replaced, a ghost made flesh, living a life parallel to mine, separated by a lie. Back in my hotel room, I stared at my phone. 3 missed calls from Mother. 1 text from the unknown number. Did you find what you needed? I texted back. Who are you? The response came immediately. Asterisk, a friend of Charlotte's. She saw your name tag at the gala. The resemblance bothered her too. Asterisk, I called the number. A man answered on the first ring. Marcus Chin, he said. I thought you might need some help. My new colleague. The coincidence was too perfect. How do you know Charlotte? I demanded. We met during my oncology rotation in med school before I switched to psychology. We stayed friends. A pause. She was adopted. She's always wondered about her birth family. When she saw you and your mother's reaction at the gala, she asked me to help. Why didn't you tell me this at the gala? Would you have trusted me? A colleague you barely know, making wild claims about your sister. His voice was gentle. Sophia, I'm sorry for the deception, but Charlotte deserves to know the truth. And so do you. I closed my eyes, processing. Have you told her what you know? No. That's your story to tell, if you choose to. I thought of Mother's panicked face at the gala. Of Father's late-night conversation. Asterisk, it's done. We've started again. Asterisk of growing up as an only child, carrying the weight of a ghost. I want to meet her, I said finally. Can you arrange it? The small cafe near Fisherman's Wharf was crowded with tourists. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a corner table with a view of the entrance. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. She arrived exactly on time, scanning the room before her eyes found mine. No recognition, just curiosity as she approached. Sophia, she asked, extending her hand. I'm Charlotte. Her voice was different than I imagined Eliza's would be, slightly deeper, with a New York accent. As she sat across from me, I searched her face for our shared features. The eyes, definitely. The shape of our mouths. But there were differences too, her expressions, the confidence in her posture. Thank you for meeting me, I said, hearing the tremor in my voice. Marcus was very mysterious about all this. He just said it was important. She stirred her coffee, studying me. Though I have to admit, when I saw you at the gala, I felt something like déjà vu. I placed the folded birth certificate on the table between us. I found this yesterday. She hesitated before opening it. When she read the names, her face went still. Twins, she whispered. My sister supposedly drowned when we were 7, I said. But she had the same scars you do. I gestured to my own eyebrow. Above your right eye. Her fingers went to the small mark reflexively. I was told I got this during a procedure. We were climbing the apple tree in our backyard. She fell. 5 stitches. Charlotte set the birth certificate down. If what you're suggesting is true, why? Why would your parents give me away and pretend I was dead? I shook my head. I don't know for certain. But from what I learned, you were very sick. Leukemia. They brought you to California for experimental treatment. I did have leukemia as a child, she said quietly. My adoptive parents, told me I nearly died. My father was one of the doctors who developed the treatment that saved me. And afterward, my parents gave you to them. The words tasted bitter. They erased you. Charlotte was silent for a long moment. I need more than a birth certificate, Sophia. This is too much to process on just this. I know, I said. I'm staying in San Francisco for a few more days. We could get a DNA test. And I have photos from before the lake. Something changed in her expression, a softness, a vulnerability. I'd like to see those. We talked for 2 hours. I showed her childhood photos on my phone, the few I'd been able to scan and save before Mother had accidentally destroyed our old albums in a basement flood. Charlotte told me about growing up as an only child in Rochester, about her recovery, about becoming a volunteer coordinator to help children like she had been. By the time we parted, we'd agreed to meet again the next day, and to take DNA tests. Whatever the results, she said as we stood to leave, I'm glad we met. I watched her walk away, this stranger who might be my sister, feeling a strange mixture of hope and grief. Back at my hotel, I found 7 missed calls from Mother and a text from Father. * Your mother is worried. Call home immediately. * Instead, I texted Marcus. Thank you for connecting us. His reply was simple. * Family matters. Both the blood kind and the chosen kind. * I stared at his words for a long time before I finally called my parents. Mother answered immediately. Sophia? Where are you? We've been worried sick. I'm in San Francisco, I said. I met Charlotte Reed today. Silence. Then, who? Don't. My voice hardened. I know the truth, Mother. I have the birth certificate for us both. I know she had leukemia, not a drowning accident. I know you and Dad gave her away. More silence. Then, Father's voice, Sophia, come home. We can explain everything. I'm not coming home until I have answers. Real ones. It was complicated, he said, his voice strained. Your sister was dying. The treatment was experimental, not covered by insurance. We spent everything we had getting her to California, finding doctors who would take her case. So you gave her away because you couldn't afford her? The bitterness spilled out. No. Mother's voice again, sharp with pain. We gave her up because we had nothing left to give. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your child suffer and not be able to help? To drain your savings, mortgage your home, borrow from everyone you know, and still come up short. Then why lie? Why tell me she drowned? A heavy pause. Because it was easier, Father said quietly. For everyone. For you, to grieve once rather than watch her suffer. For us, to start again without the crushing debt. And for Eliza, for Charlotte, to have parents who could give her everything we couldn't anymore. You erased her, I whispered. You made me grow up believing my twin was dead. We did what we thought was right, Mother said. We were young, desperate, making impossible choices. Did you ever check on her? Did you ever wonder if she was happy? Every day, Father's voice cracked. But the adoption was closed. Complete separation was the condition. I ended the call shortly after, unable to bear any more. Their explanation, their justification, their guilt, none of it erased the years of lies. The childhood I might have had with my sister. That night, I dreamed of the lake again. But this time, instead of terror and cold water, I dreamed of 2 little girls laughing, splashing in the shallows, whole and together. Charlotte and I met again the next day. We'd both done the expedited DNA tests. The results would take several days, but neither of us really doubted what they would show. What happens next? She asked as we walked along the bay, watching ferries cross to Alcatraz. If we are sisters twins, what does that mean for us? I had asked myself the same question all night. I don't know, I admitted. We've lived completely different lives. We're strangers who happen to share DNA. But we could choose to be more, she said softly. Family is complicated. I know that better than most. My adoptive mother died when I was 15. My father and it's been difficult since then. I thought of my parents, their desperate explanation. The impossible choice they claimed to have made. My parents want to explain themselves, I said. If the test confirms it, would you want to meet them? Charlotte was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she said, "Not yet. I think I need to know you first, before I can face them." That seems fair. We exchanged contact information, real information this time, not through Marcus. As we prepared to part ways, she hesitated, then hugged me quickly. "Sisters or not," she said, "I'm glad fate brought us together." 3 days later, the DNA results confirmed what we already knew. 99.9% match. Identical twins. I forwarded the results to my parents with a simple message, *, I need time. *, their response was equally brief, *, we understand. We love you. *, on the flight back to Boston, I thought about the sister I'd lost and found. About the parents who had made an impossible choice. About the family we might someday become, not perfect, not unbroken, but real. Charlotte and I had agreed to weekly video calls. Small steps toward building whatever relationship might be possible. Marcus had offered to help however he could, a steady presence in the storm of emotions. My apartment felt different when I returned, not smaller, but more open somehow. As if making space for new possibilities, new connections. I placed a framed photo on my bedside table, Charlotte and me at Fisherman's Wharf, squinting in the sunlight, the ghost of our shared childhood visible in our matching smiles. That night, for the first time in 18 years, I dreamed not of drowning, but of swimming, strong and sure through clear water, my sister beside me, both of us heading toward the shore. Do you think I was right to uncover the truth about my sister, knowing it would shatter the foundation of my family? Would you have confronted your parents or let the past remain buried?